Look, let me say at the outset that I have been an advocate, as you know, for coal mining, and I'll continue to be. I don't need any lectures on coal mining. When my family were broke during the drought in the 50s, my father went to work in a coal mine, underground. The shafts went down miles. He dug coal in water up to his waist. He suffered from arthritis for the rest of his life. The place was Acland, my birthplace, now destroyed by greed. I put a piece up on my Facebook page during the holidays, Alan Jones, Australia. Put simply, I went back home. There is no home. It is confronting to see your birthplace destroyed. As I said, I'm all for coal mining, but I've never been an advocate for greed. This mob, New Hope, want approval for stage 3 of the mine. But you see, underground mining is dearer than open cut. When my dad worked underground, the farmers worked above the ground. Money for everyone. This mob came in, I call them vandals. They bought up every home in Acland, bar one. Buy thousands of acres of beautiful farming land, remove the homes so it looks as though no one has ever lived there. Prime agricultural land wasted to serve the interests of a mining predator. This has all been tested in the courts. In fact, it's 20 years last December since various governments acknowledged there was a problem. Why have they bought all the land? It's simple. They want the coal that is under some of it and the water that is under the rest. Water for nothing. This all went to the Land Court of Queensland back in 2017. The farmers won. There were 100 days of evidence and submissions. New Hope were given every opportunity. Barristers and top QCs costing tens of thousands of dollars lined up against the battling farmers for whom we all pitched in so they could mount a case. The Land Court reached scarifying conclusions. Quote, it's beyond doubt that the mining proposed by New Acland Coal in revised stage 3 will cause disruptions to aquifers in the Acland region, which will have an impact on nearby landholders for hundreds of years to come, unquote. The Land Court unsurprisingly found of this New Acland mob that their, quote, past performances had not been satisfactory and that their, quote, existing operations have adverse impacts on surrounding people's physical and mental health and on noise and dust levels, unquote. I could go on. There were pages of this stuff, but this mob have money. The farmers don't. They appealed the Land Court decision, and the Queensland Court of Appeal amazingly found that groundwater shouldn't be considered, an outrageous situation which would never have been intended by the drafters of the legislation. You cannot assess a mine in relation to criteria like environmental impact and public interest if it's specifically excluded from considering groundwater. So in the Court of Appeal, the farmers lost. I should point out, the Land Court found, quote, New Acland Coal has already commenced its stage 3 mining activities, unquote. Totally illegal, no approval. They've done this without a mining lease and without an environmental authority, but no action taken. Last year alone, New Acland Coal had been issued penalty infringement notices for approximately 34 exceedances of the noise limits over only a few weeks of monitoring and from drilling activities. By the way, I mentioned greed. The Land Court found that this mob, who donate to political parties, of course, the Land Court found that the taxpayer would be lucky to get 7% of the royalties. All the rest of it goes back to New Hope. New Hope told lies in the Land Court that if they don't get their way, it could cost 3,550 jobs. They then said 1,556 jobs. The Land Court found that these figures, quote, are not supported by current expert evidence. Indeed, one economic writer following the Land Court decision against New Hope wrote this, quote, this week in Brisbane, a member of the Land Court, Paul Smith, handed down a scathing 459-page determination against New Hope's subsidiary, New Acland Mine. It said Smith rejected an expansion application for the New Acland coal mine. In doing so, he peeled back the layers on an arrogant and bullying corporate culture. He wrote, New Acland Mine was not afraid to use everything in its power to destroy a local town. Rather than engage with local residents, he wrote, the company bought up houses in Acland and destroyed them. Smith, the member of the Land Court, said the actions of New Hope contributed to the angst between the company and the opponents of the mine, that the New Acland Mine downplayed its part in the destruction of Acland, the Land Court found. By removing most of the buildings in the town, it has in all likelihood killed off any chance of the town of Acland surviving. One wonders whether the removal of the buildings in Acland has been a deliberate ploy by New Acland Coal. New Acland Coal has acted quite intentionally, says the Land Court, like a bull in a china shop. It found that the objectors, that's the farmers, were honest, hard-working, regular folk, and that New Acland had, quote, a tendency to treat anyone who disagrees with it in a dismissive and disrespectful manner. Well, David Crisafulli is the leader of the opposition in Queensland. We have a massive audience in that part of the world. It's his job as opposition leader to address issues. He went to Oakey last Thursday on the issue of the mine. I'll come to that in a moment, but he joins me from Brisbane. David Crisafulli, thank you for your time. Before we get to the negatives, of which are the many, some positives, you're talking today about bail laws being too weak, and you are absolutely right. What should happen to people who breach bail?
Well, I cannot believe we have a system in Queensland where breach of bail isn't an offence for a young offender. So how on earth do you ever expect a young kid who is a habitual reoffender to comply with those conditions if there is no consequence for it? And that is the system we have in Queensland. And look, I'm all for helping people getting back on the straight and narrow when they're in the infancy of life. But we are dealing with people who aren't on their second chance, they're on their 20th chance, they're on their 50th chance, and they are ripping lives apart. And I can tell you full well, there are people tonight who will wake up and have some little grub who has gone through their house, and their kids will feel unsafe for years to come. There are young tradespeople who'll go out to the front lawn today and their car will not be there for them to make a living. And do you want to know worst of all? There's a couple of families who are burying loved ones because the system is broken and it's got to be fixed. It's got to be fixed once and for all.
Well, on that, you are 100% correct, and keep at it, and it's to your great credit. Acland. I'm not sure, David, which is the worse, sponsoring crime and punishment or sponsoring untruth. I have had the misfortune of listening to your press conference last Thursday in Oakey. The best I can say for you is that you were better than Pat Weir, who is apparently your Shadow Minister for Natural Resources. You should sack him for telling lies. But do you know one word that neither of you could utter last Thursday? The word was farmers. Have you been to the Acland mine?
I've walked the streets of Oakey, Alan. And I've been to Farm Fest. And
have you been to the Acland mine?
And Alan, my issue is
David, have you been to the Acland mine? You're commenting on it. Have you been there?
Alan, my issue isn't about defending the rights of a company. I couldn't give a fig about New Hope.
Hang on. Can you just answer the question? You're going to talk about the Acland mine. Have you been there? The answer is no. OK. Did you speak to any farmers? Did you speak to any farmers?
Alan, I am a farmer, so I'm making these comments as someone who knows a thing or two about the land.
You told in the press conference...
You're asking me for my opinion on something.
Now, hang on. You haven't been to the Acland mine, but you told the government in the press conference, I quote your words, go to the mine and look men and women in the eye and explain where to from here. What about the farmers, David?
Absolutely.
Do you look them in the eye?
Absolutely, Alan. And you know what good governments do? They give certainty. And there's a reason why I went to Oakey. There were two reasons. And I can tell you it had nothing to do with a mining company who I couldn't give a damn about. But I tell you what I care about.
Hang on, David, I'm not going to allow you to come on this program and talk rubbish. You said it's not about coal, it's not about the company. That is absolute rubbish. This is about the company and their disgraceful and predatory behaviour as outlined in the Land Court and rejected unanimously in the High Court. Your Shadow Minister said that he stood with the workers from the New Acland mine, not the farmers. He sold them out. He's supposed to be their member, the member for Condamine. Frecklington was the member for Acland, and she sold them out. Weir doesn't call them farmers. He calls them objectors. He said the frustrating part for him and everyone involved in the mine and this district, presumably the farmers aren't part of the district, and then Weir tells lies. It's not on water. It's not on environmental grounds. David, that is precisely what it is about. And that's why the Land Court ruled in favour and why New Acland has been fined on over 40 occasions. But Weir says how badly the whole process has unfolded. Yeah, because those with money, a giant mining company, conglomerate, keep refusing the decisions of the courts, including the unanimous decision of the High Court, no less, and they won't accept that. I don't know what you people are up to. Go and talk to the few miners. Go up to Acland and see what they're doing and the devastation and destruction.
Alan, I respect your position and I respect that you will allow me to come on and talk about it. But let me repeat, my decision for going out there was twofold. One is I wanted to look the men and the women in the eye who are going to be without a job, and I want the Premier to do the same. Now, you're right when you push and say that involves all of the community, and I'll cop that. The second thing I want to do And whether or not people say it should or shouldn't progress, no one can tell me that we should live in a state that after 13 years we can't make a decision. Now, one way or another,
David, the only reason we can't make a decision,
making decisions.
every time the courts find in favour of the farmer, this predatory mob with money continue to appeal. Now, the High Court's had a unanimous decision, and this mob say, we're going to go again. We're going to go again. They appealed to the High Court to have the farmers pay all the costs. And the High Court said, go and get lost. When are these people going to stop ignoring the decisions of the courts? Look, we've run out of time. You'll be on next week.
Thank you.
Go on.
Well, two things on that. It's ping-ponged around because of appeals from both sides. But I'm not here to defend the company, but I'll say one thing. If the government thinks it shouldn't go ahead, it could make that decision tomorrow. If it thinks it could, it can say, yes, but let Mr Land Court give us a set of rules that make X, Y or Z. But they won't make a decision. Yeah, They're all over the shop. At least I've got the ticket to stand up for something, unlike the Premier.
The Land Court issued a 500-page document of scarifying condemnation of New Hope, but they've got money to appeal. We'll talk to you next week. There he is, the Leader of the Opposition in Queensland, David Crisafulli.